Isaiah 64 is a multifaceted prophetic prayer. It functions as a plea for physical protection, a confession of national sin, and a witness to the raw power of the divine. The text documents a period of ancient devastation, but the lesson notes that this prayer is also applicable to the second coming of Christ, when the Lord himself shall descend from heaven. This creates a central paradox, the tension between cataclysmic power to rend the heavens and the intimate relationship of claiming God as Father. To bridge the gap between divine wrath and covenant mercy, the prophet constructs a specific logical argument that moves from the elemental to the personal. We begin our analysis with the prophet's plea for divine manifestation. By tracing this logic, we can see how Isaiah maps the transition from human ruin to the hope of a restored spiritual order. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 1 states, "Oh, that thou wouldest rend the heavens, that thou wouldest come down, that the mountains might flow down at thy presence." This is a passionate request for God to reveal his presence as he did in the past, causing the earth to tremble before him. Exodus chapter 19, verse 18 states, "And Mount Sinai was altogether on a smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended," the physical imagery for Isaiah's plea. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 2 states, "As when the melting fire burneth, the fire causeth the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence." Here, fire symbolizes a consuming power, designed to force recognition of God's supremacy from all nations. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 3 states, "When thou didst terrible things which we looked not for, thou camest down, the mountains flowed down at thy presence." The prophet reminds the listener that God's historical actions have consistently exceeded human expectations. Moses chapter 7, verse 13 states, "And so great was the faith of Enoch, that he led the people of God, and he spake the word of the Lord, and the earth trembled, and the mountains fled." This demonstrates a scriptural pattern where divine power literally alters topography through the faith of his servants. This pattern extends into the New Testament. Matthew chapter 17, verse 20 states, "If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, Remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove." Isaiah chapter 64, verse 4 states, "For since the beginning of the world men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither hath the eye seen, O God, beside thee, what he hath prepared for him that waiteth for him." This establishes that God's ultimate plans are beyond human sensory perception. The Apostle Paul later paraphrased this for his own audience. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9 states, "Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man, the things which God hath prepared for them that love him." Moses chapter 5, verse 13 states, "And Satan came among them, saying, I am also a son of God. And he commanded them, saying, Believe it not." This influence causes humanity to ignore God's plan, leading to a profound lack of understanding. The rejection of this plan results in an increase in worldly wickedness, murder, and the formation of secret combinations. Because this adversarial influence has clouded human comprehension, the prophet calls for a cataclysmic intervention to reset the spiritual order, an event linked to the Lord's eventual descent from heaven. The following passage addresses human depravity. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 5 states, "Thou meetest him that rejoiceth and worketh righteousness. Behold, thou art wroth, for we have sinned." This contrasts God's desire to meet the righteous with the reality that human sin provokes his wrath. The verse notes that in those is continuance, suggesting that only through persistent adherence to God's ways is salvation possible despite human failure. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 6 states, "But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousnesses are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as a leaf." This introduces the concept of a corrupted human nature. The filthy rags metaphor conveys the theological premise that even our best deeds are tainted when performed in a fallen state, making them unworthy before a holy God. The same verse describes humanity fading as a leaf, a depiction of how our iniquities sweep us away from God's presence like the wind carries dead foliage. Isaiah chapter 64 verse 7 states, "And there is none that calleth upon thy name, for thou hast hid thy face from us." This depicts a state of spiritual neglect, where God withdraws his favor because no one earnestly seeks him. Isaiah chapter 57 verse 16 states, "For I will not contend forever, neither will I be always wroth." This indicates that God places a specific limit on his judgment. Without this limitation, the spirit of man would fail entirely, extinguished like a candle by the weight of divine power. The prophet establishes this total lack of human merit to prepare for an appeal based not on what the people have done, but on who God is. We now turn to the prophet's appeal to the Creator. Isaiah chapter 64 verse 8 states, "But now, O Lord, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art potter, and we all are the work of thy hand." The argument pivots to God's sovereign authority as the Father and Creator of his people. This metaphor illustrates complete human dependency. By describing the people as clay, Isaiah emphasizes that they are moldable and entirely subject to the potter's will. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 9 states, "Be not wroth very sore, O Lord. Behold, see, we beseech thee. We are all thy people." The plea for mercy is now based on ownership. The people ask for compassion because they belong to him. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 10 states, "Thy holy cities are a wilderness. Zion is a wilderness, Jerusalem a desolation." The physical ruins of Zion serve as the visible evidence of the consequences of turning from God. This desolation matches the specific covenant warnings found in Deuteronomy 29 and 30, where the land itself reflects the spiritual state of the people. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 11 states, "Our holy and our beautiful house, where our fathers praised thee, is burned with fire." This lament over the temple's destruction anchors the text to the historical devastations of 586 BC and 70 AD. The loss of pleasant things signifies that the destruction was total, consuming not just the architecture, but the joy and blessings once associated with God's presence. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 12 states, "Wilt thou refrain thyself at these things, O Lord? Wilt thou hold thy peace and afflict us very sore?" The chapter ends with a question, asking if God will remain silent while his work, his people, continues to suffer. This final appeal bypasses human failure and anchors the hope of the people in the unchanging identity of God as their Father. The chapter moves from a demand for overwhelming divine majesty through a stark admission of human depravity to a final reliance on the covenant between the potter and the clay. This theological arc documents Israel's historical survival and provides a framework for those awaiting the Lord's promised descent from heaven. The text suggests that waiting for divine intervention requires accepting our position as moldable clay in the hands of the Creator. This concludes our overview.